From the global news network of Breitbart.com, this is Breitbart News Daily with your host, Mike Slater.
All right, Alex Marlowe here in for Mike Slater, editor-in-chief of Breitbart News. Hoping Mike is enjoying an early Thanksgiving break. Congressman Michael Cloud is on with me, Republican from Texas's 27th District. Congressman, thanks for joining the show. I want to start with the Dismantle DEI Act. This seems like a big deal. There's so much momentum now. We've been talking about this a lot in our newsroom about how this is the time to run up the score and to start, I think, solidifying the victory by putting things in place like this. But break down what it is and what people can do to get behind it.
Yeah, the Dismantle DEI Act, really, it does three things. One is it goes throughout, it's a comprehensive look through the federal government. It would dismantle the executive orders that have stood up a DEI office in virtually every single agency throughout our government. And then one thing that the Biden administration did to kind of force feed this on the American people is they've required businesses doing business with the government, federal contractors, to also embrace these DEI ideologies and, for example, stand up these kind of offices and have these sorts of trainings within their business. And then the same thing would be for those who were getting grants. If you were getting a grant from the federal government, they wanted to know what your DEI plan was. And so this was their way to kind of push this on the American people. This bill goes through and it gets rid of all those practices and really restores merit back to the federal government.
So what is the temperature like in Washington for this? I mean, who would vote against such a thing at this point in time? I mean, it just seems like the public spoke and we don't want any of this stuff to happen anymore. You're seeing a lot of red states and certain corporations that are all saying they're disavowing their past DEI commitments. But what is the environment like in Washington really overall?
Yeah, it's kind of interesting, especially post-election, because as you said, the American people spoke very clearly. As a matter of fact, one of the Democrat members who participated in the debate even came in a room after the debate and said to me, let's be honest, the American people spoke pretty clearly about what they think about DEI a couple weeks ago. But, you still have some who are clinging to those ideologies. A number of them have gone through our universities that have been teaching this critical race theory and this flawed view of American history. And so you see some still standing on those ideologies and trying to push this forward in Congress. But, the American people are very clear. We don't want this anymore. We want merit. We've made a lot of progress as a country on this. And the last thing we should do is retrograde and again, put race or sex as the first determinant as to whether you get hired or you get a promotion or those kind of things, or get grants or contracts from the federal government.
So what are the prospects of this passing? What kind of support do you think it has? When do you think we'll actually see this come up for vote?
Sure, yeah. It's passed out of the Oversight Committee, so it could be headed to the floor. The likelihood with everything that needs to be done between now and the end of term, it's very likely that we'll have to bring this up again next term. I will say the Senate co-lead on this is J.D. Vance, a gentleman you may have heard of. And so it's certainly a priority of this administration coming in that this happen. There'll be a lot the president can do through executive order, but one of the things, of course, my big concerns as we go through into the next term is that Congress has got to codify a lot of what President Trump does. Otherwise, we'll have a bubble of 4 great years, and then potentially, depending on who gets elected, these things can retrograde into the morass we've seen lately. Yeah. So Congress is going to have to step up on these issues as well and make sure that we're coming behind the president and putting these things into statute.
I also like these things because you got to get people on the record to see who's going to vote against this, because that's really good primary fodder and general election fodder for future elections, because this stuff is automatic. This is one where eventually we're going to come to our senses here, and we're going to there are very few issues where I'm crystal clear that we're going to come to our senses eventually. This is one of them. We're not going to do the DEI stuff for life, and we're doing this now. And it's just important for people to get on the record who are involved in this fad that this is the way to go through life in America. This is not American. It's all anti-American, the DEI stuff. And we're going to get rid of it. I have a question. How is it even legal to do it? It just seems like racism, or reverse racism, it used to be called, to have all the DEI stuff.
Yeah, that's a very good question. Most of us would say this is clearly not legal. If anything, the Dismantle DEI bill upholds the Civil Rights Act and makes sure that we're all being judged equally when it comes to hiring and firing and all those different kind of things. But case in point, one of the big issues, whether it's DEI or many other things we've seen through the Biden administration when it comes to securing our border, or many other issues, the question's been, well, how are they getting away with this? Isn't this legal? And you talk to voters back home, and it's like, well, from the Oversight Committee perspective, especially, we can bring things to light through investigations, but normally you would hand those investigations over to a nonpartisan DOJ. But we know that the DOJ has been not only in on the gig as far as kind of turning a blind eye to this illegality, but they've been helping advance these sort of things. And, so that's been a big problem with this administration, and certainly something we'll see corrected in the Trump administration.
Yeah, interesting. Again, Congressman Michael Cloud is with me from Texas. There's a lot of DEI in FEMA also right now, as we saw with this person admitting that they weren't helping the hurricane victims who had Trump signs in their yard, which is just shocking that anyone would admit this. But how widespread is the institutional rot, and what's the path to cleaning it up?
Yeah, case in point, the day before our Dismantle DEI markup in the Oversight Committee, we had a hearing on FEMA in that specific situation where people with Trump signs in their yard were being overlooked in the FEMA recovery process. And, it's just, you think, how do you get to that point? And of course, the administrator sits there in our committee hearing and tells us the same thing I've heard from a number of different agencies based on whatever the issue was of the day. Whenever you bring up malfeasance or bad practice, they're like, well, it's not in the policy manual. And it's like, well, we know the policy manual is there to cover your rear, so to speak, and people will point to that. But yet the culture of the organization, like, how do you get to a point where this is even thought, even remotely, by any employee to be permissible? Well, you look at their strategic plan in FEMA, and they are implementing DEI. One of their main objectives is to disperse aid according to DEI principles. And so you are already asking your employees to make these sort of judgment values based on, the DEI determinants, and it's only a half step past that to add a political spectrum to it. And so again, us coming through and just getting rid of this, rooting it out, this ideology out of our federal government, is exactly where the American people want to go. They want to know that that justice is blind, that they're going to get fair treatment from their government, and that's a process. Of course, we have had corrupt people in government, so it's never been perfect. But that's the model we want to be moving toward, as opposed to where this administration has led us.
So, Congressman, if you want people in the audience to get involved, what should they do?
Well, you can definitely follow us, help retweet or re-X the information out there. Contact your rep.
I think we're still calling it a tweet, right? We're calling the platform.
I guess. Is that okay?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know Musk. I got to reach out to him, see if see if he'll take my calls. Okay, I want to bounce two other ones by you while we have you on the line. We had a report over Breitbart over the weekend. Republicans stepping up to support a Texas law protecting children from internet pornography's health dangers. Internet porn is completely rewiring the brains of human beings, and we have no idea of how widespread the effects are. It's just, we can't chart it. And I'll tell you, I've got 4 kids, and all of them are pre-internet age, but we're getting close with the eldest. And this is my nightmare, that how much of this filth is out there. And what do we do here? How do we protect our kids from this in our society right now?
Oh, that's a very good question. One of the things that I've always been oddly curious about, why aren't phone companies creating a kid version of a phone? I think an iKid phone would sell like wonders, but yet they don't. Absolutely. But you have these big tech. They want our kids, and that's why even with some of the transgender ideology stuff you see going after, it's meant to be an end around parents, where they're trying to take parents out of the loop, as opposed to understanding. We used to teach in schools that family is the building block of society, of a healthy society. And so, we put great priority on the family. Now we see a number of different initiatives in culture and in government to work around and to divide kids from parents and make kids kind of a ward of the state, so to speak. And so, some of this is going to be cultural. Some of this is people getting back in church and and doing things like that. But from a government perspective, we've got to look at every sort of policy that begins to rip apart families and attack that. But certainly, there's a lot of protections that need to be made for us. Making sure that we protect kids and keep this kind of thing away from them. But a lot of this, like I said, I think it would actually be a big economic win for these businesses if they would just step into this game. I've tried, as my kids are growing up, to try to mess with the parental, protections and those kind of things. And sometimes you'd have to 50 clicks just to try to get a setting right on these sort of things. You almost have to have a minor degree. And most parents.
Oh my gosh, you're so right about this.
Heavy. It's like you spend hours trying to, and then you have one website that is related to the school, or anyway, it just ends up being impossible pragmatically to do it. And so parents are like, I can either spend half my time doing this. Of course, we try to make that a priority.
Yeah, this is exactly so. This is what's happening, and the audience could judge me on this, but I have 4, and my eldest is 6, and he's takes after his mom, and he's smart. So he is, he's first grader, he's third grade reading level. What can I say, Congressman? He's a chip off the old block, and he's getting a little more tech savvy. And now it's time for me to throw on all the parental controls. I don't even know how many apps I have now on my TVs and stuff. I don't know. I don't even remember everything I subscribe to, and I'm gonna have to go on one by one, figure it out, make sure it's applied to every single TV in the house and every single computer that you could potentially open up, and iPads that are in the closet that who even knows? I don't even know where they are. I mean, I've got old computers that I just don't want anyone else to have that are around, and because my work is somewhat top secret to some degree, and it's such a headache, and I don't know how many days it's going to take me to do this. I don't want to do it. I would rather just, here is your device. This is locked in. My device's passwords. And then we're done, and it's 1 or 2 steps, and it's over. People have thought of
Why
this.
Is there a phone that basically says, these are the contacts you can call? There's no internet on it.
Yes.
There's, that would sell like gangbusters.
It really would. Me and you, we're going to invent it. We're going to invent it. Let's get in the ground floor. Anyone in the audience, aloha@alexmarlowe.com. Send me an email. Congressman and I have got, we've each got $100 to invest for you. Congressman,
sure.
Give me your thoughts on DOGE. We're so excited about this over here. Could this finally be the beginning of draining the swamp when we get this thing going?
I hope so, and I'm so thankful that this administration is taking this on, and then to bring in some savvy business leaders who've had obvious success in efficiency and making great things happen on little resources. This is what Elon did with X is exactly what needs to happen to our federal government, where he went in and fired 75% of the people, and you have a better product for it. We have these agencies that have well expanded their original intent. Their attitude when they address us as lawmakers is kind of like, we're permanent, you're elected, you're temporary, we'll do whatever we want. If we like your policy, we'll help push it forward. If we don't, we're going to slow walk it. We certainly saw this where they were working against President Trump, and it's amazing what he got done in the first term with them all working against him. But this is a heavy weight on the American people as well. And, for us to come in and we have the Government Accountability Office puts out a report of waste, fraud, and abuse every year. And basically we get done with it. We have a hearing and oversight, and we're like, we all pick our favorite topic to talk about for 5 minutes, and then it seems like nothing gets done. I'm like, this should be kind of like the agenda for the entire term. But to even make that list, one of the parameters, it has different parameters that, they look at. And one of them is your agency, your program has to be wasting $1 billion. So at the federal government, you could make the case that we don't even start counting waste until it reaches $1 billion. This is a problem, I think, and one that needs to be corrected. So I'm super pumped. I mean, we have initiated legislation like the Federal Sunset Commission Act, and those kind of things to try to bring sensible governance to our government and push back on this growth that's happened over decades. But really excited about what the administration can do. And like I started with, I just hope we'll have the wherewithal in Congress to support it.
Yeah, I hope so too. Congressman Michael Cloud from Texas at RepCloudTX on X, formerly known as Twitter. Congressman, appreciate you spending the time today. Thank you.
Thank you. God bless y'all.
Same to you. We'll be right back and we'll wrap up with your calls.